So I had several questions about alcohol this week. Not shocking. Generally, it's a big concern here. Can I drink? What can I drink? All that good stuff. So I wanted to provide a little bit of clarity on the pros and cons of alcohol. Okay, so they do have calories. The gram of alcohol is going to have more calories than carbs and protein, so it's 7 calories per gram. It's a little bit less than fat, which is 9. So that's just to say that there are calories involved. If you want to run through this, I'll be posting this in the group along with a sheet, but you're going to metabolize alcohol before food. So that can another be a problem is, when people are drinking and they load up on calories from food, it can create some extra body fat storage potentially. This comes from a group ketogene, which is really awesome. So some of this refers to being in ketosis. You don't have to worry about that per se, unless you're doing a ketogenic diet. There's the link. There's also going to be a couple alcohol cheat sheets I can share with everybody in the group. Biggest takeaways is that if you are going to drink, I would suggest really trying to limit your intake to 2 to 3 standardized drinks, which are the exact measures. So like a lot of people say they have a glass of wine and they fill up half a glass. That's probably 2 glasses of wine. So we're looking at standardized drinks because that way it'll really show the whole alcohol content that we're consuming. Start off with 1 time per week. Track what you eat while you're doing it. Probably the number 1 reason that alcohol ends up contributing to body fat gain for people who are training is just that it's going to number 1 disrupt REM sleep, and then well actually I should say number 2 it disrupts REM sleep, but then number 1 it's going to be just you're eating a lot more than you're actually thinking you are just because your inhibitions are lowered. And just also be conscious of how you feel while you're starting, kind of checking with yourself every 5 to 10 minutes, see how things are going. You'll kind of start to discover how it affects you totally, and then from there you'll kind of know how often is the right amount for you based on not only your body composition and health, but just how it makes you feel in general that night, the next morning, potentially a couple of days later even. Don't drink your bedtime. You are going to disrupt REM sleep, and that creates a cycle where, the more REM sleep that I lack, when it's disrupted, then I'm tired the next day. I could potentially have more caffeine or whatnot, but then I'm so, overly stressed and I'm not recovering. And my mechanism for dealing with those sensations and those feelings is to then drink again at night. You can see how fast it can build up. So when people break that habit, they're pretty amazed how quickly it can revert, but then just when they go back, it just really hits hard. Okay, so just kind of clearing out that. If you are going to drink, the healthiest options are going to be hard alcohols mixed with some soda, some non-caloric mixes. Element makes great drinks. Those little packets I gave you. So you make margaritas out of those and check those out for sure. Sample nutrition macros. Okay, so now I just want to make sure that everybody was 100% clear on what's going on in the group, what we should have done by now. So if you're inside the group itself, we have our homepage here. Go down to courses. This is where the whole body challenge is. A couple of people were saying that wasn't very clear, so I apologize about that. We'll clear that up real fast. Week 0 is the week we've been on, and here's the lessons we have. Lesson 2, I submitted that sample document. Now I was just playing around having some fun here, obviously, so you don't have to make it stupid and dorky. But what we are doing, we're picking the approach that's going to be easiest for us to stay consistent with. We're looking, we're going to try to do a balanced approach. We're going to do lower carbs. Check your sheet with that information. I put it most people on a balance. I tend to try to avoid low carbs unless people are really, really sensitive to sugars and whatnot, and they're just having a really hard time moderating what they're eating. So pick the number of meals per day that fits your schedule. I'd suggest 3 to 4 to get your protein in easily. Once you start going 1 or 2, you have to eat a lot of protein, and very few people are able to do it, at least in the beginning. Maybe after you've been training well and whatnot, you can limit that down. But for now, I'd really suggest 3 to 4. Just gonna breaks up the day nicely too. Find the time slots that will work for you on most days. Aim to have roughly the same amount of time between meals, 3 to 4 hours is usually a nice sweet spot. So I incorporated all that, and I'll be reviewing this plan as we move forward. That takes care of that section. So now we are on to the dreaded macro planner. I was going to pick on Catherine because she's been submitting lots of questions, which I love. So not picking, but it's good. Okay, so if I go to Catherine's sheet here on page 4 is where all this information I need is going to be located. So I'm going to be looking at the amount of proteins, 182, carbohydrates, 157. These are my values I'm aiming at each and every day. 70 grams of fat. And this gives my caloric estimation down here. So if I go in here, my macro planner, I've now put those values right up here. To make it simple, I'm only going to plan one day going through this demo, and I'm going to have 4 meals in that day. Now, the reason we have these negative ups here is because these are auto-tabulating from the values down here. So when I zero all these out, just like I zeroed out the carbs, and the carbs will match here. But these ones are just adding up all this data we have for all these different proteins. Now, when I put the sheet in the group, I put it at about 30 grams of protein per meal. Most people will be out there. As we see up here, Catherine's daily protein is 182. Her number of meals is 4. 182 divided by 4 is 46. So that's going to be her target each and every meal. So if you go down to these values here, so if I have 1 ounce, so this is the number of ounces. So if I have 1 ounce of perhaps like a bottom round, or here we'll go with something that's pretty normal. Sirloin steak is pretty widely available. So 1 ounce of sirloin steak has 8.5 grams of carbs. I mean, protein. I know I need 56. So, if in doubt, go over a little bit. So it's roughly about 5.5, maybe 6 ounces per meal. Okay. Now I can take those values and I can apply that for each and every one. So 1 ounce, for example, of 97. Most people won't be eating 97. 93 is pretty good availability. 6 ounces. So I have a 6 ounce burger. I'm going to meet my requirements. So I planned out 2 meals for the day already. To make this 100% clear, I'm going to zero these ones out here. So, don't delete this section because these have the formulas to calculate everything, and then those formulas are feeding in up the top here. Okay. All right, so now I have everything set up. So right now we're almost at 93 grams. You can see that it's detracted from here. My fat, what do I plan on so far? 21 grams. And I'm looking at about 18 grams of fat per meal. So let's go through and let's pick 2 more here. Let's say we're going to go lean per meal and do some chicken breast. So again, I'm looking at 46 grams. So roughly about 5 ounces. So I have 45 grams of protein left to plan for this day. And I'm going to do some salmon. So we're doing salmon for dinner. The fattier meats I put in there, I put the protein plus fat, just to know these are going to be higher energy foods. So when you eat these ones, you're going to have to limit carbs a little bit more just to keep them balanced. Okay, so as you can see, I have about 2 grams of protein left to plan. So I've roughly done that. It's taking away my calories, so it's showing me how many calories I have left. Now my carbs per meal are going to be about 40. So let's say I'm going to do the sweet potato with my chicken breast because that's lean. 4.9, so about 5. So you got about 8 ounces of chicken breast. I didn't put the green vegetables on here because they're negligible. I don't really think that's going to be a problem for anybody. But this is now allowing me to plan out 1 meal. I have my chicken, my sweet potatoes, or since I'm planning for the whole day, you can kind of mix and match it. You don't have to be super OCD about this. It's just to give you a nice illustration of how to your quantities and your serving sizes, which then you can compare to your hand to gauge things and know that you're on track. Okay, now these ones in red I put here because these ones are the ones that people really tend to overdo. So like for example, rice here, 39. So we're going to be about 5 ounces of rice. Okay. The other thing that I would suggest too, this will be tougher next week, but when I go with a starchier starch, when I go with a higher glycemic starch, meaning one that has more impact on blood sugar, I'm not going to be combining that with like my fattier meats. Okay. So if I have a fattier meat, I'm going to tend to go with a lower glycemic carb. So I can plan out my entire day like this. Now the second section here, so I'm going to help Catherine with hers. So what we got here, so I should be about 5 for everything. Now I'm going to go, I tend to go a little bit over because I'd rather have a little bit extra from protein and detract because like I've probably told you by now, it's pretty hard to overeat protein unless there's like a specific medical problem going on. So we're just going to assume, oops, go. There we go. 5.5 for that one. You see, kind of have fun here, just getting it all ready. And a lot of these are going to be the same, or roughly the same once you get it dialed in. Okay, so this is the macro planner. It allows me to plan 1 day at a time. If I want to do more than 1 day, let's say I'm going to do a 4-day batch cook, I can enter that. And now, once again, it's showing me how many more grams I need, protein, carbs, fats, how many calories I have left to plan. Now that I have the ratios that I need, so these are my ounces I need to reach my target of protein for every meal. And take this over to this sheet. I'm going to go down here, copy, go up here to Catherine macros per meal, go to the same section. And I'm going to paste those values. And now what I've done is I'm creating a list I can quickly reference. I can keep this near my refrigerator or at my desk, wherever I'll be planning my meals and my weeks. And I'll know how many meals I'm going to be planning for. So let's say I decide to plan for, 3 days. Well, I know number of meals per day is 4, so that's going to be 12 meals. So I'll need 12 servings of protein. So if I'm going to do, 4 servings of 93% ground beef, is like burgers, it's one of our family favorites, then I'll know that I'll be needing to get 24 ounces of that ground beef total. These are written slightly different. It says limit. It says limit because the protein, I'm trying to hit my target, which is good for my metabolism, my body composition, and all the goals that we're after. I don't need to hit a maximum or minimum of carbohydrates. I need to stay under the maximum. But if I don't have enough carbs one day, all I've done is create myself a little caloric deficit. There is a talk, we can talk this week. We're also going to talk about swapping out. So like if I go a little bit over my fat, okay, keep carbs a little bit lower. Now I've balanced out my energy. And that's going to work well for a lot of people. So since Catherine's been a good sport and asked lots of questions, I'm going to fill in the rest of this for her. And it's going to take us into next week. And the topics of next week are going to include looking at your favorite meals. Because most, outside of like a problematic food, like for me or other people, there might be like a grain intolerance. So if I'm eating bread, for example, there's going to be some negative consequences there. It's going to make me bloat up. It's going to have repercussions beyond just the calories. Okay, it's going to make it hard to digest. Stop sharing my screen here. So it's going to impact my health in a lot of negative ways. It's not just managing the ratios at that point. There's after effects that I don't want. Dairy is another big one for me. If I drink dairy, I get clogged up. I snore more, have a harder time breathing. It makes my body kind of feel achy. So I'm not going to eat those dairy foods because I don't like the overall cost. Okay, the benefits, the 15, 30 minutes of pleasure is quickly overtaken by the congestion and all those sensations that I don't want to have. So I avoid dairy. Over time, you may make that decision with certain things. You may find that, a flour tortilla digests a lot worse and makes you feel worse than a corn tortilla. Or maybe even the corn tortilla, impacts your digestion more than you thought, and you use the CLA almond flour or coconut flour or cassava flour tortillas. So we're just getting in touch and seeing what's working the best, what not only tastes good in the moment and is desirable to eat, but what's creating the best effect the rest of the day, for a couple days, etc. Like I mentioned, the bloat that I can get from some of those problematic foods for me, that's going to last like 3 days or so for me. It's not just going to go away overnight. So the cost really of eating one of those things is really mounting. And again, I'm not going to say I'll never eat it, but I'm going to eat it far less because I've really become aware of how it makes me feel like crap for days on end. So that brief, moments of pleasure doesn't outweigh it. So we're going to look at that. We're going to tweak those meals. So, I could take my favorite meal, which is pho, Vietnamese noodle soup. I found that, there's like 10 ounces of noodles, 12 ounces sometimes, somewhere in that neighborhood. So if I match it with my servings, and I'll do a training on this, I'm eating about a third of those noodles, and then I'm going to double the meat or add some extra meat in there. And in that way, now I'm hitting my protein, I'm managing my total energy, managing my blood sugar by not overeating carbs that are going to jack my blood sugar up. I can do that with lots of different meals. Burgers, we do lettuce wrap burgers. So we're going to start to look at those ratios, and then you're going to get really objective about how you can really enjoy the foods you like the most in a way where we're mitigating or eliminating all the costs. So I'm getting most to all the benefit and I'm removing almost all the costs. And that's like the win-win sweet spot that's really going to make you stick with this. We're also going to talk about what does it look like to plan a batch cook? That's going to be a training sequence, a training video. There's going to be an alternative approach called the food matrix. I don't want to pull that up or down. That's going to be posted soon. The food matrix is a great way of making a lot of, be able to know what's in your refrigerator or what you've already cooked. And then from there, preventing getting bored with your foods by mixing and matching. So like you might have 3 proteins. Let's say I have steak, chicken, and pork, and I have 3 carbs in my refrigerator, you know, sweet potatoes, rice, and corn tortillas. And then I have some green vegetables. I can now, because I have 3 proteins and 3 starches, now I have the possibility of making 9 different meals. So rather than having to pick a recipe, it makes 6 or 8 servings of the same exact meal that maybe I get bored on, maybe you don't, and that's great. If you can eat the same thing day in and day out and you're enjoying it, go for it. A lot of people get palate fatigue, like kind of burn out on something after 2 or 3 servings. So it does mean okay to make 6 servings of something and then, you know, not want to eat the last 3 and they go bad, which we've all done. So that's the overview of what I have tonight. Like I said, all this is going to be available in the group under week 1. And this video will be posted here soon. So I hope everyone's having a great weekend. Hope that clarifies. As always, you can reach out to me. Let me know what's not clear. If you are going through it and something's not working or just, you know, not fitting the way that I'm describing it, please tell me right away. We can fix that problem as fast as possible. Have a great weekend. Bye.